Give it up to this gentleman, Brian Zang. Can we give a round of applause for this guy? Twice, because he spoke in Brooklyn. But just tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Brian Zang. I'm currently Chief Revenue Officer at a company called Ring.io. I have been in startups, scaling tech companies since 2008. How I actually got into sales. So I used to code. I used to be a computer science major, which all my CTOs love. And I coded senior year of high school, went to the University of Maryland College Park as a comp sci major. Blew all my savings first semester in college and realized on the winter break I had to get a job. I got a job selling, actually canvassing, knocking door to door for a company called Home Fix, which did vinyl windows and siding, right? So this was a long time ago. But when the phone used to ring when people ate dinner, right? That was me calling or knocking on your door. And so
This thing called door-to-door sales.
door-to-door canvassing, right? And that's how I started, and I absolutely loved it. That's why I fell in love with sales, because that was the first job that I actually got paid for how good I did at the job, right? And so now I'll really date myself. Funny thing was, I was like, okay, I don't want to stare at a screen all my life, right?
Yep.
So I'm not going to do computer science. I'm actually going to sell, engage, and talk with human beings. And then the screens took over, but that's what got me in sales.
The screens took over. That was said. Every sent there. Screens are taking over. AI, robots.
Yeah. But since then, to close the gap, I have sold everything. I've sold to SMB, I've sold to consumers, I've sold to enterprise. I've managed teams that have sold to consumers, to SMBs, enterprise, and scaled multiple companies in SaaS and not in SaaS. So.
And the company you're with now, Ring.io.
Yep.
I got that right now?
Yes.
Yeah. There's a little bit of controversy.
We're going to rebrand.
But yeah, just maybe just share like what exactly that is now.
Yep, so at a high level, it's a CRM integrated phone system, right? So primary partner is Salesforce. Salesforce is, you might have heard of them. They're a pretty popular CRM system that a lot of people use. Big pain point still is a lot of sales, service, et cetera, is conducted over the phone. And most of that data just goes away into the ether because your people have to manually log the data, right? So we've built a phone system that integrates seamlessly with Salesforce and for customer service, teams, and things like that. When you get inbound calls, we actually route calls automatically based on Salesforce data, right? So you don't actually have to call an 800 number and key in info. We're smart enough to know everything that exists about you in Salesforce and route accordingly, right? So if you're a prospect, you can go to an SDR team. A pipeline deal, you can go to an account executive. If you are a customer, you can go to customer experience, et cetera, automatic.
Imagine that, salespeople using phones.
That's still a topic of conversation.
Yeah, we should, we'll talk about that later, but you have this really great framework for, and you did this presentation, I think it was Canaan Ventures. And I really like the fact that you really had a really great framework for thinking about how to actually scale SaaS teams. And I want to just talk about the hiring aspect. I think that's where things really begin, because particularly in the early stages, you hire poorly, that can have a major impact. So what are just some of your thoughts in terms of sourcing, in terms of getting candidates in the door, that process, kind of soup to nuts, until you give them an offer letter?
Yeah, so I think I look at recruiting. So people, no matter what you sell, people are the company's greatest asset typically, right? So I always try to hire the absolute best in the market that's available, right? Because the better you are, in sales, the much greater returns you provide, right? There is an exponential effect of top talent versus not top talent, right? So look, you do everything you can to acquire them. I've always worked with phenomenal internal recruiters. Lately, working in startups without budget, I have worked with a lot of external recruiters, right? And the benefit of external recruiters is you only pay if you hire the candidate. So it widens the funnel for you without costs. I advise a company called Hierarchy that I work very closely with that does sales matching, and so they're very good at matching the attributes that I hire for with candidates.
And maybe just dig in a little bit more on like the attributes, but I think a lot of people get confused as to how to try and hire, and a lot of companies I've worked with, when we talk about the early stage startups, they typically haven't built out a true profile of what they're looking for from sales candidates, so they hire kind of randomly.
Yeah. So much like how you go to market and identify the customer, you want to identify who you want working for you from an attribute-based perspective, right? So me personally, I hire based on 3 attributes, right? So intelligence, first and foremost, curiosity, and motivation, right? And typically motivation for me needs to be intrinsic versus extrinsic. I actually don't hire money-motivated salespeople. I hire money-motivated salespeople as the secondary motivator, right? The primary motivator from an intrinsic perspective is I do the job well because I do the job well, and that's my personality, right? So intrinsic motivation is doing the job because you love to do the job. As Mark was saying, sales is a profession, like he's intrinsically motivated by sales because he loves to sell. He is always going to be a better hire than the person who just works for money, hands down, right? I'm not saying that's bad or good. I'm just saying, from my perspective, intelligence, curiosity, motivation. Curiosity in sales is critical, right? We are information collectors now, and you have to be curious. You have to hear something, pick up on it, ask the right question, right? So I won't give you the exact questions that I ask, but I ask questions that help me score candidates on those attributes, and then I ask for specific situational role play-ish questions to understand how just basic sales personship and how good they are at specific things.
So the key things that you actually have pretty much written out, these are the questions I'm asking, and I'm scoring candidates.
I have a Google Doc with every candidate that I've interviewed with scores and notes. So for quantitative-based questions, I score it. Qualitative, I get the actual text of what, as close as I possibly can, to what they asked. And then I see how good I am, right? Because we all make mistakes, everybody can improve. Nobody is perfect, right? Hiring human beings, you're hiring variables. We're all unique in some aspect, right? So fundamentally, people talk about sales as a great formula. It is, right? It's formulaic in nature, but one of the variables is a human being, which is the infinite variable, right? So you're never gonna get perfect 100% of the time. Figure out, hey, I had a great hire. Wow, that was awesome. Let me go back and see what types of data they gave me on the interview, right? Wow, I really messed up on that one. What happened? Is there any differences of patterns? And then you just optimize questions, right? I should have asked that. I should have role played this. And it's a process that you refine and improve, and the questions get better over time.
Do you do any sort of like role plays or ask people to come in with any sort of presentations, or do you give them like situational type stuff? You don't have to give away the secret sauce of the questions, but.
So I do a very specific role play based on water sales. And Stephen DeFina, who I used to work with at Yodel, he runs sales for Rogers Communications down in Canada. I stole this role play from him, and it is a phenomenal role play that it is anybody can do. You're a Fiji Water sales rep, you're selling in the Whole Foods, the competitor you're trying to displace is Aquafina. I give you enough information where you can execute the sales process, and it's geared to test right away. What do you do first? Do you start to ask questions, understand your buyer, or do you start to pitch features and make up this great story about Fiji Water? So there's very specific test points throughout that role play that I look for, and I've used it for 8 years now.
I will say it tastes great and it's less filling. So, I mean, it's something else. But the other side of it is keeping reps, right? And so I don't know if you've seen the same statistics, but I'll say anywhere from like 35 to 55, and I've seen even higher percentages of basically reps leaving after 1 year. And had a conversation yesterday in New York where our speaker was like, he said he's heartbroken whenever someone actually leaves, and he tries a lot to try and prevent that well before retention becomes a challenge if someone opts out and leaves with their own volition. So what are maybe some of your thoughts on keeping people, and maybe we can also maybe talk a little bit about that motivation factor?
Yeah, so think about the acronym parole officer, right? Parole officer.
I don't know where you're going with parole, but
Fundamentally, though, churn, employee churn, typically happens for two reasons, two buckets: performance, opportunity, right, and lack thereof. So lack of performance, lack of opportunity, right? So lack of performance can be individualistic as a producer, or it could be lack of performance as a company that makes it harder to execute in the market. But fundamentally, lack of performance drives turnover. So it's involuntary or voluntary turnover. If I have to do layoffs, hey, company's not performing, right? Lack of performance, right? Or then lack of opportunity, right? So if you've got good people, this is the challenge, right? If you hire well and hire motivated, intelligent, curious, best in the market people, those are the people that have more opportunity, right? And so you have to create an environment where they absolutely love coming to work every day and enjoy what they do, right? So you want to get into motivation and how we create that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be great. I mean, because obviously there's a lot of things you can do. I mean, you can do monetary things. People talk about splits and all those types of contests, but to me, that seems to be very external oriented, maybe oriented towards things that may not necessarily be conducive for a great culture.
Right.
So maybe we can dig a little bit on that.
Sure. So I think that, again, extrinsic motivators are great for short-term performance boosts, right? So I want to drive a certain action short-term spiff, right? Or contest geared around specific behavior, right? That will increase that behavior for a short time. But if you rely on extrinsic motivators too much, you get in these ebbs and flows, right? Hills and valleys, where if I want to get the peak, I have to motivate, right? And so as a leader, right, like I hire people, we all have some level of motivation, right? It's like a gas meter, right? There are people that are motivated, right? And I will succeed regardless of obstacles. There are people that are less motivated, right? And operates on a spectrum. As leaders in companies and cultures, we can expand, right? What's in the tank, right? We can accelerate that, motivate them more, or create an environment where they're less motivated, right? And so I believe peak motivation comes, like for me, I learned this early on from one of my first managers, I will never do anything, I will never ask a person who reports to me to do something that I will not do myself. Whether that's pick up the phone and call an irate customer, whether that's execute a cold call, whether it's craft a cold email, work on Saturday, whatever it is. If you're there, I'll do it, right? So first and foremost, right, that's a trust and just credibility perspective, right? Like if I ask you to do something, I will do it, right? Open and honest, right? People have worked for me, they know they can talk to me about anything because I set that expectation again and again and again, right? Like good, bad, Brian, you're, this and that, or can we curse on this program?
Oh, you can let loose.
If you're being an asshole, or like, I don't think you're right, I think this is the path. I welcome that, right? If you think I'm doing something wrong or I can improve, cool. Tell me. I'm going to tell you, right? So open and honest, and then just direct lines of communication, right?
And I think part of it as well is just, there's also like a continuity to it, right? So, this is the classic, we had the annual review, and I forgot what you did for basically 364 days a year, and now I've got to actually write a bunch of stuff down. So what do you just think about like maybe the continuity or the regularity of it?
Yeah.
Do you do like regular one-on-ones? Are you spending time with reps just to help coach them?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think that I invest one-on-one time with every rep, every manager, every director that's ever reported to me, every VP, right? One-on-ones weekly, important. Where it's just general open Q&A, right? Where I get a pulse check and feedback. At Living Social, I did quarterly kind of skip level, so I was a director. I would do quarterly one-on-ones with reps just to get a sense of each layer that you have in the organization, information is filtered, right? So I want to go to the source and just understand how my manager's doing, what is the culture like, how can we improve, et cetera. Weekly coaching, weekly one-on-ones, I'm always investing as maximum amount of time as I possibly can into coaching, into improvement, training, etc.
And I think the challenge with that though is finding the time to do a one-on-one, especially when you're at Shopkeep. When you started there, it was like how many people?
30 employees, 5 reps at a time.
And when by the time you left,
I was managing sales and marketing and operations, so it was about 80 people. So when I started, Chucky was 1 million recurring revenue, and when I left 3 years later, it was like 24, and we went from 30 to 250, 5 to 80. You know, time is one of those. Time is the great equalizer, right? Like time, we all have the same amount of time. Fundamentally, it's what you choose to do with that time. And you know, I've struggled with this. That's a tough decision. Is where do you allocate time, right? I always typically err on one-on-one time as much as I possibly can. There are very few things that are more important than one-on-one time, because it's that open feedback loop that helps me think strategically about, oh, maybe we're going down the wrong path, maybe we change directions, maybe we accelerate there. So it's a high priority.
You suggest maybe just doubling down and saying, let's just schedule the time well ahead of, and just say this is untouchable. Yeah,
for me, I do recurring meetings all for one-on-ones, for call coaching, consistently. So it's recurring now and forever for the future, right? And I also, however, one lesson I've learned going through Living Social days and Shopkeep, I had a lot of reports at Living Social, like 22, 24 direct reports at a given time. So all day Monday, all day Tuesday with one-on-ones. 40% of my week, back to back to back one-on-ones. That I was overscheduled, and I did this at Shopkeep. You can overschedule yourself. So one of the things I've learned is actually schedule free time, like time to think, right? Because if you've got too much going on, now I will block chunks of time to just think problem A, or how to grow 30% this quarter, whatever you're thinking about, schedule time. But my calendar is generally booked.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll talk a little bit about just organizing and maybe building habits, because I think that's a really critical thing. We were talking about that before. But when you start thinking about scaling what you're trying to do, particularly from a process perspective, what have you found that's actually going to work because you start out with a small number of reps, and you got to be able to repeat that process. So what have you kind of uncovered or discovered about trying to build something that's repeatable, and making sure that as you go through a certain stage of growth, that you're re-examining and maybe taking those learnings and building up a process that actually works for that stage?
Yeah, I think, what I've learned, I've been in tech startups now for 8 years. I've seen kind of all sides. I think what you want to make sure of is that your unit economics work, that if you acquire a customer, that customer is profitable, right? With the infusion of capital that comes into some companies, that can make us less vigilant on the underlying their economics of SaaS, right? The beautiful thing about SaaS is recurring revenue. It's repeatable, it's predictable, there are metrics associated with it. I know how much it costs to acquire a customer, I know how much they're paying me, I know how many are leaving. You have to make the math work, right? Once you make the math work, then you define the process, right? Just because the math works does not mean it's scalable, right? And so, you want to define what is the process from, and I look at it in 3 stages, right? It boils down to identify, engage, convert, fundamentally. Identify, engage, convert is how I always look at phones, right? And I think marketing and sales have blended historically, and when you're going to acquire customers, companies as well, right? You want to identify who do you want, right? Who do you want to use your product? Who is the customer? Right? And you have to align cross-functionally. A lot of times left the sales like, I don't know. Here you go, Mark.
Yeah, well,
figure that out, right?
And it's strange though, because they kind of drop down sales, but don't you need, like, your CEO needs to be aligned, marketing,
right?
product?
Best companies are complete, and it's hard, right? By no means, right? This is a challenge at every company. But ideally it's aligned, right? We're aligned to the customer first and foremost, right? Customer experience is the most important thing, employee experience is the second most important thing, right? You get those 2 things right, you've got a good company. And everyone is aligned on what are we doing? Why are we in this market? What problem are we solving? What product are we building? What promise are we delivering on, essentially, right? Which is sales. Are we delivering on that promise? Awesome. Great. We have happy customers. Happy customers accelerate growth. Upset customers de-accelerate growth, right? So once you have that fit and you identify the market, you do everything you possibly can to create maximum awareness in that market, right? If I have a market, if this room is my market, I want you all to know about me, right? And I want to move you along the continuum of you are in your current state here, I'm going to move you to the ideal state. The ideal state is my product. So if you think about purchasing behavior, it's current state to ideal state, right? If I'm hungry, my current state is hunger. I get food, my ideal state is satiated and full. Thirst, if I buy a drink, right? I'm thirsty, current state, ideal state, satisfied, right? The same thing with buying behavior. Complex sales, complex enterprise sales is a much harder continuum, right? That's an oversimplification, but fundamentally, what we're doing is moving someone from a current state to that ideal state, right? And when you engage with them, now there's multiple channels of communication. It used to just be sales, right? Like 10, 20 years ago, we were selling, but it was sales. We were the brand, we were the ones engaging with the audience, right? Now you've got marketing engagement, you've got website, you've got marketing collateral, you've got a lot more inbound, right? 70, 60, 70% of the funnel now is done prior to talking to a salesperson. You've got SaaS free trial experiences, so they're talking to your product, they're engaging with your product. That's part of these channels to engage the customer and move them to that ideal state. And so, you know, you've got to be very, very good identifying who you're targeting. What's the strategy to engage them and maximize engagement, right? Multiple touches. You know, whether it's cadence tech, phone call, trial, product, there's social, there's multiple touches before they become really a happy customer. And then conversion is the sales machine, essentially, right? And customer experience, right? It's a line, right? Because if I develop a relationship as a salesperson on the front end, and I make promises that our team fails to deliver on, again, unhappy customers will drag your growth down, right? Happy customers are out in the market talking about how great this product is, just makes everything so much easier.
Sure. Maybe take an example of what you're doing now at Ringio.
Right. There it is.
Anyway, but talk about what would you define as the type of sale you have now? Are you doing complex? Is it SMBs? Is it?
It's enterprise. So we're targeting head sales, complex enterprise sales, annual contract value. It ranges, a big range, really 40 to 100,000 typically.
So, in terms of the engagement stage, what do you find that's working for you? From getting awareness and building interest and moving people from kind of the amorphous, like, okay, it's a lead or prospect, into something which is an actual deal.
Yeah, so I look at engagement as kind of bottom of the funnel tactics, right? Like SEO, SEM, when they're actively engaged, looking for the solution, you want to make sure that you're there and capturing them and making it as easy as possible to move to that conversion stage. So content, though, is big, right? And so we did Shopkeep when we created the
So you have a pretty serious inbound program that you try to build out.
Yes, and Shopkeep was 100% inbound, by the way. We were driving, we had a sales team at the peak, 40 or 48 when I ran it, all inbound, right? And so, you know, if you can drive that inbound and across the funnel, different stages of content, right? We produce content for the customer, right? Who's the customer, right? What problems are we trying to solve? You can solve those problems or create those problems in their mind or help them think about those problems with content before they ever get to your product, right? So like we do high performance sales stack, high performance sales playbook, you know, things like that a head of sales ops or a sales leader will download and get value from, and we in exchange get information and we start a conversation, right?
So, you know, in terms of just actual tactics, so are you seeing a lot, you know, it's inbound, so you're doing a lot of just, you know, email exchanges, phone, is it social? You're trying to engage in like multiple channels?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do multiple ways. So we have LinkedIn Sales Navigator, right? We do a lot of emails. It's a great tool. We do a lot of emails and a lot of phone calls, right? We find, and there's stats around this as well. The Bridge Group released a study that multi-touch combination, you know, email, social, calling produces the highest percentage of quality conversations, right? So again, there are benefits to each. We reserve emails for key targeted accounts that we want to get after. They tend to have 4x the conversion of email higher than calls. Yeah, they're expensive, right? So you got to use them wisely. But multi-touch definitely.
Just out of curiosity, just really driving deep into tactics. are you using things like Sales Navigator?
Yeah, so we use, tech stack, we use Salesforce, right? CRM, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, Guesswork as the email client, Zoom Info to get numbers. We also use Clearbit tools to scrape leads. Us as a diamond solution, right? At Ring.io, everything's automatically logged. And, PandaDoc for contracts. And I'll be honest, I inherited that when I came on board. I actually really like it. PandaDoc, it's pretty cool in that you can actually chat on the document as opposed to redline.
Right.
So it's like it creates a nice engagement chat function and email tracking capabilities for like contracts and stuff. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, anything what I say often is like anything you can get rid of like the friction in sale and actually save your reps time. So that ends up being a big thing. So I mean, in terms of things like, you're getting a lot of inbound, but are your reps actually doing a lot of like research or trying to get a little bit more knowledge before they're engaging?
We do. So we do it. We have an outbound targeting effort at Ring.io. We scrape a bunch of targeted accounts. We get data about them via the web, and then we research into them for key points of who we want to communicate with, right? And so typically, if we're selling to a chief revenue officer, head of sales, head of support, we're not going to start there. We typically start, there's theories on top down, bottoms up. We typically start bottoms up to gather human intelligence, and then to your point of removing friction, I don't believe in manual logging of data at this point, right? It's 2016, so every email, every call, everything that happens is automatically logged, stored, messages are in Salesforce. Because if you think about still half the market at least manually logs data in their CRM, and I've been a rep, right? Like I know. I didn't log every call. I log calls that I need to log for a next step, right? If I got hung up on, I probably didn't log that activity, right? Salesforce is awesome, but why click a button and log an activity when I don't really have to, right? And so what happens though is if all your data is not automatically logged, all your modeling is off. Because you think it takes 10 calls to generate a meeting and it actually takes 25, right? Or 10 touches to generate a meeting and it actually takes 30, right? And so you're forecasting off bad data, which produces lower numbers, which produces a turnover and repeat, right? So now invest in tech where it's not much, right? It's a few $100 for the full sales stack, 500 max, to get an automated sales stack where your reps do not have to worry about logging data. It's done, their actions are recorded, they can focus on selling as opposed to manually logging data.
Right, so that's a big thing.
Yeah.
I also wanted, it might be time, if folks have any questions, you can throw them out, it's cool, because this guy does know a thing or two about sales, so
Yes.
you could definitely, if you feel compelled to ping him for some specific knowledge, but before folks start pouring in with the questions, how about a little bit of just view on the whole SDR world, right? Because there's a lot of different theories and ideas around this idea of sales specialization, and obviously this whole idea of having a sales development team, teams that are dedicated to prospecting, is taking off. Just what are some of your theories of just setting up a sales organization where closers, prospectors, inbound, outbound, and so on?
Yes, I think that there are definitely benefits to specialization, right? So most orgs that I've run have SDRs, BDRs, however you want to frame it, prospectors, closers, customer success, account manager, sales engineer, but prospectors, closers, customer support, right? Specialization, right? Like Henry Ford in what, 20s-ish, right? If you specialize, and I'm doing one task over and over and over again, I get better at that task, right? However, you need to have a program in place where in 12 to 18 months, people are graduating to a next level, right?
Yeah, let me ask you specifically about that, because when I had Trish Bertuzzi, when she spoke a few weeks ago in Boston, we talked a lot about promotions, and that seems to be like an area of a lot of friction.
Right.
Because you have a lot of folks who are generally younger in their careers, but they want to advance really quickly.
Right.
So how do you kind of manage the expectations, versus like what you're able to do as an organization from a promotion standpoint?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've always had, like I said, I've always had SDRs, and I believe if you have an inbound team, you have SDRs, right? You want to qualify leads. Outbound, again, it depends, with all these things, it depends on the market, right? If your target account list is 50 and you're selling to Fortune 100 CEOs, maybe you don't need an SDR team, right? Maybe I hire a enterprise level, hot, 10 plus year experience sales rep to go after them. But if you hire people, again, it goes back to performance and opportunity. You have got to be open and honest, right? I talk to my teams about financial metrics, right? I feel like as a salesperson coming up, I didn't know what went into actually running this business, right? I just expected everything, and that's what I expected, right? I didn't know any better. Now seeing companies kind of understanding economics and the fundamentals, I explain, here's the fundamentals, here are our goals, here's what we need to achieve. When we achieve that, it unlocks this opportunity and this opportunity.
That's great.
Nothing is guaranteed, absolutely. It goes back to open and honest. There are certain things that you cannot share from a confidentiality, legality perspective, but everything that you possibly can share, you should share. And the more honest and open you can be, at the end of the day, we're creating opportunity from a sales perspective, right? If you're generating revenue, the more revenue you generate, the better we are as a company in generating and keeping revenue, the more opportunity comes, right? So we're all on the same page, we have the same goals. But you gotta be honest at the same time, where I'm always going to hire the best talent, period, right? It goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning.
Right.
So you gotta be very careful of over-promising or leading someone into something that they're not a great fit for, right? And so a lot of times we think, sales development reps have got to get promoted to account executives. It's not necessarily the case, right? Like I promoted people into marketing roles. I promoted my best sales ops hire, started in sales. Like he started selling, and he's now like director of sales analytics. So you find their individual motivators, and they,
It's funny where we just make the assumption where we bring someone in to do prospecting, and that automatically the next jump is to be the closer or account executive. Actually, it's a good point, because they could be good at a number of different roles.
One of my 5 hires at Shopkeep moved into a product management role. He had an MBA, an econ major. I was like, what do you? There's nothing in his sales background, right, that indicated sales. But he was great at what he did, right? Smart, intelligent, moved people to the funnel, but his goal was being a product manager, right? So it's like organizationally, maximum performance is unlocked if you align personal objectives with organizational objectives, right? So like, what do you want to do personally? What experience do you want to gain? Okay, great. So I was like, listen, if you excel and achieve quota for 6 months, at that moment in time is when a product manager position will open, right? Given the current model and forecast, I will happily support you in that. I'm not the hiring manager for that role, but I will, if you perform in your current role, I will say, hey, he's a great candidate, you should look at him, right? And he turned out to be a phenomenal product manager because he had experience from the sales perspective, right? So.
Yeah, I think it's really important to actually set those expectations. I think a lot of times it's left hanging.
Right.
And you actually, and if it's that point, you're writing down like, okay, this is what you want to achieve from a goal perspective, and these are the expectations. You need to hit these metrics before we even consider, here's the next step in your career.
Yeah, so I think figuring out what people want to do and their individual motivations are extremely important, and I do typically track those, especially at large scale, right? When I'm working with numbers, I can't remember each individual, but each individual ideally has development plans, and again, it's not just metrics, right? A lot of times, even sales are too focused on metrics. The biggest variable in any forecast or operating model is the human beings driving the model, right? Like, yeah, I've done models, 3-year forecasts, like we put cells in shit, right? I can forecast for the best.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, there's this sea of human variables out there creating chaos, right? Both external competitors, like internal, and it starts to get complicated, right? So the key is, it's like the North Star. It's like, what direction does this person want to head? What do they want to do? Let's figure out how to help them get there. But I don't just say, you got to hit 100% goal. You have to be these attributes, right? You got to be a team player. You got to help each other get better. Set the performance expectations outside of the number. So there's more than just a number. There is, ultimately, we want people making each other better. Again, which will accelerate that flywheel of growth.
Good. And talking about just compensation purely, and actually I think a lot of reps don't really quite understand compensation, particularly when you're early in your sales career. So maybe like just provide some examples of how you set compensation up for SDRs or
Yep. Sure.
early reps versus maybe
Yeah.
more senior folks.
So fundamentally, it goes back to the cost to acquire customers, right? So your base salary is, if you have a base salary and never done 100% commission roles, congratulations. But why 100% commission exists is because it's easier to model and there's less risk, right? I don't pay you anything unless you sell. So there's no risk in that model. There's brand risk and elements of risk, but financial risk is mitigated if it's 100% commission, right? If no sales occur, I'm not out of pocket any money, basically. Once you start paying a base salary and benefits and health insurance and parking and office space, et cetera, there are fixed costs that accrue with each hire. And if, for easy math, if I make $100,000 a year and I sell 10 customers, that's my quota, that cost of acquisition in just the base salary, let alone payroll costs on top, is a minimum of 10 grand. Payroll can be 17, 20% on top. So there's 30, 40% on top of base salary, typically, of costs, whether you sell 10 customers, 100 or 0. That is costs, right? And then I layer on variable compensation as accelerators above that, right? So base salary is typically set at a minimum expectation, right? Of I pay you X base salary, I expect this. And then on top of that, I will pay a lot more for people that go above and beyond, right? And what I've learned is, if you can, I will never do a plan, I hate saying never, but it's out there now. So I will never do a plan that reps stop earning money. I've been in these plans where it's like, oh, cool, I don't get paid anymore. All right, great. When do I get paid again? June? Okay, cool. They're delaying a little bit. Or, oh, I hit my quarterly accelerator. I want to, and now look, you can max the percentage out, but I want uncapped commissions, right? If you get in trouble because you're paying out an accelerated rate that's unaffordable, the comp plan's off. Because you never want to have the conversation, Mark, hey, that deal was a little bit too large, so I know we said that we would pay you this, but you can't actually afford to pay.
I think that's when you're called into the CFO's office, saying, maybe you could explain this.
Right. But seriously, I mean, look, I want to plan for worst case scenario, best case scenario. Best case scenario, I want reps to make $400 million a year. And my plan's great, make $400 million a year, we're making more as a company, right? So, a lot of sales, but stuff.
But I think, yeah. And again, if folks have questions, you can ask away. I'll let you this time. I will not lie like I did before, but, all right, Tim.
Yeah. It's back all the way in the beginning, you were talking about trying to find candidates who are intrinsically motivated.
Yeah.
Can you, I know you don't want to give away your specific tactics, but can you elaborate on that a little bit? What kinds of things
Actually, yeah.
do you look for?
That's a good question about intrinsic motivation. We were talking about that before because there was a question I was going to ask and I avoided it because you made fun of me. But it's about coaching process. You used to make fun of me again. But I mean, to the point, I think I was saying that all the great people and the process, that's all great. But sales and having training and coaching on a regular basis can basically move the needle in terms of performance.
Right.
And he said, well, I mean, that does help, but that's not really the core.
Yeah.
And then we started talking about motivation.
Right. So I think the frame was, can someone be successful without training and coaching? Or something like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right? I'm going to be successful regardless of the resources allocated to me by anything. That's my mind state. Right? Doesn't matter. In any situation, in any environment, I will be successful. Right? And you have to have the mind state to make that occur. Right? If I don't think like that, I can never ever achieve it. Right? So what is in your mind is what exists. I think intrinsic motivation, Daniel Pink wrote an awesome book called Drive that breaks down intrinsic motivators versus extrinsic motivation. And intrinsic is, I do it because I love to do it, right? And I've sold, I got into sales for money, right? And I make a good living, I've made a good living, right? But I've reached a stage in my life with 2 children, money isn't everything, right? You reach this point in your life, right? You need some level to sustain you. But fundamentally, you gotta love what you do. And if you love what you do and you're selling, you make a lot more money. right? So, you know, I would ask questions like, I'm gonna get to specific questions, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you? 10 being very motivated, 1 being not motivated at all. What would you say?
Oh, me?
Yeah. What would you say?
A 10.
10. Okay.
I'm not a salesman though.
Okay, I've never heard 10, so that's interesting. All right. Most common answer is 8 or 9. Great. So give me an example of a time that you were least motivated. And we don't have to play this out, but like I would test the spectrums.
Oh.
10. Why? What motivates you? What makes it a 10? Give me a time in your life when you were 1, when you're not motivated. Let me understand that. And so digging through the layer or the surface answer that we all practice on interviews, I'm good at questioning into things and getting people to reveal things they never thought they would reveal.
Yeah, just to get to that point, did you maybe like read anything, or did anyone give you like guidance on like how to question or how to interview?
My
It challenges
parents.
a lot of managers.
Yep. Well, look, I was always a rebellious kid, right? My parents told me no, don't do this, don't do that. So I was immediately, all right, why? Why?
So the answer is get his parents to.
Why? Why? No, but like generally I want to fundamentally understand why things occur, right? And I found that in sales, the why is the most important thing. It's the most interesting thing.
Yeah.
I don't care what you
Totally.
bought, I care about why you bought that. Like, oh, you have that, you know, oh, the carpet's blue, why did you buy carpet? Why did you choose that color? I want to understand the why behind the action, because then it's much easier to create the action.
There's some things that you look at maybe beforehand, just to give you a sense of, does this person at least have some sort of indication of potential motivation? Is maybe like things you see in a resume or backgrounds?
So metrics are always important. So if you're an excellent salesperson or leader, you have specific metrics that you will attest to and stand behind, right? So one screen from a resume perspective is, are there numbers or a percentage sign or a dollar sign in the resume? Those are correlators to generally higher performance. But, you know, give me an example of a time that you set a goal and achieved it, right? Like we were talking earlier, your goal is you're gonna run a marathon. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's true. So if anyone has any tips, so I don't kill myself, please let me know.
That's his goal, right? So the fact that you actually in your mind set that goal is awesome. Much better than someone who's like, what are your goals? I don't know. Right? So the fact that you define a goal is the first step to achieving. So,
Question? No,
Yeah, my name is Don.
Hi.
Hi there.
Yeah.
Just a quick question about managers. How do you go about hiring managers within your sales department? Because there's a lot of controversy these days about, do you hire internally in terms of promoting managers? Do you hire outside? Because I've read someplace on LinkedIn recently where sometimes making your best salesperson the manager is not always the best idea. He's not always the best person. You look at other types of factors. So how do you go about hiring managers?
I read something similar on LinkedIn about that, and yeah, you have some really interesting experience. You've seen it with social, you've seen it shocking. So
yeah.
what works?
So look, I've made mistakes on both ends, right? So I've made mistakes promoting reps to managers. I've made mistakes hiring external managers, right? So again, there's no like perfect answer. I think that and if you're going to promote internally, you want to test with very specific scenarios that managers are going to be faced with. Having the attribute and skills necessary to be a manager, right? Are they open and honest? Can they have tough conversations? If they're, listening to this call recording, what are they picking up on? What coaching advice would you give to this specific scenario? If I came to you with this problem, what would you say? And frankly, I personally needed to do more of that as I was scaling fast, right? Because, I've worked with awesome reps, awesome managers, but as you start to scale and the acceleration continues, it's like, I just need, I need someone, and the need can sometimes trump the best, right? And so the best advice I've ever gotten, I got it early, was hire at the best. Never hire unless you're 100% certain they can do the job. Never get stuck in the, I think they can do it. No. Why don't you think they can't? Question into it. Be sure. So again, hire the best talent. I think that salespeople who want to coach, mentor, train others, and that's what they want to do. I always wanted to do that, right? I wanted to coach, train. That was my motivation. I've worked with my manager to say, hey, what can I do? What opportunities can I have? Can I put trainings together? Can I coach on, morning stand-ups? So I was always doing that and proving that I could do it and lead prior to me getting an opportunity.
Maybe looking for some of those opportunities, those inclinations, maybe some folks that set goals or want to take those opportunities as opposed to just promoting the people who are just the best of the best sales reps.
Right, and now that I've done this, right, I won't give you, I'm older, I've got gray hairs. I tell reps, I speak about it from the other side, because I could have made a lot more money and had a lot less stress if I stayed just as an enterprise sales rep, right? I mean, there is no doubt.
Yeah.
Mark laughs because he's, a business owner and trying to grow a business, but you do, we go for a reason. I'm just saying that there is another side for that rep that really wants to be a manager. I'm like, oh, you do, okay, cool. Here's what life might be like. Can you handle that? And some people can, but some people like my buddy who sells for a company I won't name, I won't out him, but he doesn't work that much, and he does very, very well in enterprise sales. He's very good at what he does, but I probably work 4 or 5x the hours that he does for half the pay. Yeah. Right? So you gotta love developing, right? Getting into leadership, management, and there is a benefit to creation.
Let's see, ask this question. All right, go for it.
Okay, so you want to speak on your thoughts about diversity in sales teams and how to achieve it if you think it's important?
The diversity in sales teams, and what was the last part?
How to achieve it if you think it's important?
How to achieve it. Yeah, I think diversity is unbelievably important. Right? I was fortunate enough to take over a team at Living Social where I had my first manager was female and she was awesome. And I came from an environment that was very male dominated, boiler roomish. So coming into an environment where I was like, oh, the top performer is female, okay, great. And she was the first manager that I hired because she was just a rock star, right? And so, I have kids, I have a daughter, my wife is another race. So I look at people are people, right? I think at the end of the day, anybody can be successful, right? Women are different than men. Men have strengths, women have strengths, right? My wife is much more patient than I am. Patience is a virtue when it comes to negotiating sales cycles, right? So each individual, regardless of ethnicity, race, religion, it doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, I think and I think oftentimes we think along these lines, right? Because that's what's forced in us, but there's also socioeconomic status as well that diversifies, right? So I want to hire people with different ideas, and I want to hire the best people. Now, the trick and the challenge, especially in tech, is you have to sometimes broaden the talent pool, right?
Well, that's it starts at the sourcing.
Yeah. So if the executive team is white males, which is a combination, is a high probability, okay, right? You have to widen the pool through education and opportunity, and I think there's a lot of work to be done, right? But fundamentally, I believe that any human being can add value, period, and
Well, that's
should operate
obviously
as
true,
such.
but the question is how to make those changes in organizations when
Yeah.
it's dominated at the top by one
Yeah.
thing.
Called out, right? I mean, again, I'm pretty direct. So if people in the organization have a problem with it, there's a problem with it, right? And so if you have an organization that's open and honest, you can talk about it, and not just to each other, right? But upward funnels. At Shockey, we were very good at this. We had a predominantly white male dominated board and leadership team, and we actively tried to change that. And we would inquire about, we did 2 things. One, create leadership development internally, right? So we were creating promotion tracks for merit, regardless of background, and then actively hire and diversify the pool, right? Meetups are great. If you can proactively get out there into the community and go out and source from different parts, it's actually a strategic advantage. If everybody's pulling candidates in from the same funnel, you're competing with the same funnel, right? If you go out in the market and try to identify where are areas of opportunity and build it young, as well out of school or in school, you can create
That's
more.
a huge thing.
create more
Go where the talent is.
Right.
And I think there's great organizations like Women's Sales Pro that I know of from Boston, and the organizations like that, which are just, they're the pools of really talented individuals, and you can be at those events and be present and say that you emphasize diversity, and that's important.
Yeah.
I think the talent will come in.
Right. But there's also fear at play, right? And like, you have to embrace different ideas, right? A lot of people don't embrace, the ego gets involved. It's like, I don't want, I say I want diversified ideas, but I really don't. I want everybody to think like me, right? So if that's the culture you create, it's the culture you get. I personally don't like that culture. I like to be challenged and different ideas, and I don't care who you are. Let's figure out how to do it the best we can. So.
Well, maybe some closing thoughts.
Good question.
It's always good questions from C. She's amazing. And really, she's like a true leader herself, and an amazing marathon runner.
Right, I
You'll
hold the
have to share your
record,
story.
okay, I hold the record for the most number of New York City marathons for a female.
Really? That's awesome.
So
What is the record? What is the record? 29?
that's my inspiration right there. Like my extrinsic motivation.
Yeah, really.
But
That's awesome.
It's a lot of marathons.
so
I bet you.
I'll bring you down to South Carolina with me. Two last things.
Yeah.
Your like closing thoughts. Just, when you think about trying to build up your organization, like, is there like a major lesson learned, both positive and negative, that you take away? Like, something that you've learned, because now you kind of look at social, shopkeeping, you're going to start to do that, Ring.io.
Yeah, so I think that, so it comes down to employees and customers, right? I think at the end of the day, I think you've got to have happy customers and you've got to have happy employees, right? I think those, if you've got them and you're open and honest, you can figure out, you can overcome obstacles, right? Because obstacles are going to come. No matter the business, you're going to get challenges, right? No matter the individual, you're going to get challenges. And so you've got to create the framework of an organization that embraces challenge and embraces getting better, right? Like I want people that were better today, like I'm better today than yesterday, fundamentally, right? And so if your organization is created like that, the odds of you succeeding in the future are higher than if you're stagnant, right? Example after example after example where stagnation just crushes you, right? And so don't be stagnant, whether it's personally or organizationally. Grow, learn, get better, and keep moving forward,
And
right?
is there something that you've learned that it definitely doesn't work
Huh?
as you're scaling up that sales org?
Forcing it, right? There's no forcing mechanism, right? I think that as a first line sales manager, right, I used to be selfish in that I had my number, right? Like I had my number. No matter how many people I had, is my number. When I let that go and said, you know what, my number actually doesn't matter. What matters is if I have 10 people and their quota is 10 grand, my number is 100 grand, okay? I can selfishly try to get my number and look good and be successful and get paid and pay my mortgage, et cetera, or I can make the 10 people that work for me the most successful people that I can make them. And when I flip the mindset around to, I'm here to make the people who work for me successful, the best they can be, and in turn, I'll be successful. So it's a subtle shift, but dramatic difference. So it's kind of a positive and negative, right? To lose the selfish mindset. It's the same with sales, right? If you're selling for you, you're not going to be as effective, and you're not going to create a customer experience unless you're like, boom, I can help that person. I'm selling to create value for them. Basically.
And one last thing I ask every speaker, is there something that you've read or seen, watched that's been really inspirational? It can be about sales, it can not be, but just something that you felt was really moving.
Yeah, so I think I have read a book recently called Extreme Ownership. Anybody read Extreme Ownership? It's by this ex-Navy SEAL, spent 20 years in Navy SEALs, trained Navy SEALs, and it's and now he does business consulting. And so it is a book based on the story of the Battle of Ramadi in Iraq with special ops Navy SEAls, and there are it's an interesting way it's structured where Jocko will in and leave that and basically talk about a battle, talk about a lesson learned in battle, and talk about how it applies to business. And the whole premise of the book is extreme ownership, right? Like you own what you do, right? Regardless, you got a problem, it's on you. Sales are flat, it's on you. Regardless of who you are, right? So it's this management theory book, but it is told in a way that's got an awesome narrative, and it is an excellent book. So, extreme ownership.
All right, check it out. So we're going to stick around here for a little bit. Stick around maybe if you have questions.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
want to spend some one-on-one time with great Mr. Zang. But let's give a round of applause.